What's up, everyone? Thralls Mullah here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have another large collection update here. Still going through the stuff I got from Florida. Also have some stuff from the Metalhead box in here, and I believe only one new release, really, so be an interesting mix of different shit in here for sure. So, let's get it started. Gonna start off with a pair from Ghoul Gotha. Here we have their first album, the Deathmask Cloak, and their second and final album, To Starve the Cross. Now, this is an interesting kind of death doom band, kind of avant-garde in some sense, especially on their first one here. This one, I appreciate them trying to take a different approach to death doom and death metal to a sense. It's very avant-garde, it's very unpredictable, it's very strange, not very contemporary songwriting here, but unfortunately it doesn't result in a lot of hooks. Very few and far between, at least as far as I was listening. The songs just sound kind of disjointed and really didn't, make much of an impact on me. There weren't a lot of hooks in there, and I kind of need that. Interesting riffing, and again, interesting songwriting structure, but just odd. This one's definitely far more traditional, more along the lines of death doom, or just real sludgy death metal, kind of similar to like Incantation, with maybe a little bit of a black metal feel to it in spots. Really good stuff on this one. I really like this one. Again, these are the only two releases from these guys. They both came out on Dark Descent. Very short-lived band, but two very different releases. If you're looking for something a little more contemporary, definitely check out the Starve the Cross. And if you're looking for something that's just strange, check out the Deathmask Cloak. It's an interesting listen either way. Either way, check them out. Gorguts, the Erosion of Sanity. I actually have this one technically on the Two from the Vault series that Roadrunner did like forever ago, which those are also kind of hard to find. This is the Metal Mind reissue. These are limited releases. There's only 2,000 copies. This is number 1602. And I just had to get an individual copy of it because honestly, this is probably my favorite Gorguts album. This pretty much took their death worship and went a little bit more technical. Not quite to the level they went to much later on Obscura, but definitely more technical than Considered Dead. Great album. If you've never jammed this one, this is, I would say, a death metal classic, especially in terms of the whole Quebec scene. This was one of the big ones I think that came out that really kind of started getting things going there. Definitely check this out. It's a killer release, especially if you can find an individual copy of it. That's even better because these are kind of hard to find these days. Check it out. Alright, we got another pair from Gwar. We have Violence Has Arrived and War Party. Both of these I was missing, and both of these I definitely wanted to get because this was when they returned to metal after their kind of odd stage, from the albums before, which I really don't get into, even though if I saw them I'd probably still pick them up because I love Gwar. Violence Has Arrived might have one of their coolest album covers. I absolutely love this cover. And this was definitely a return to form, back to the metal. This was on Metal Blade. Very thrashy feel. I don't like the mix on this. I think the drums are a little loud in the mix, and the guitars sound maybe not dirty, because dirty is kind of what you want from Gwar, but they don't sound as good as they should. Definitely some awesome songs in here. I absolutely love Battle Lust. Abyss of Woe, that's a live staple. And Elixir, I think, is just good, goofy fucking fun. Now, this one, War Party, I thought was much better produced, and honestly, this was the first time I saw them was when they were touring on this. It was at Sounds the Underground 2006, I believe. And yeah, completely blown away by Gwar. They were absolutely killer live, and this is what they were touring on. I remember them playing the opening track, Bring Back the Bomb, and I was like, dude, that is some killer riffing on there. And honestly, I loved this entire album. Great stuff. I'd say these are definitely essential listening. If you're getting into Gwar, definitely check them out. Gwar's a lot of fun. Check it out. Bane, the Acausal Fire. This is Bane's first album. Now, this is not the Bane hardcore band. This is a black and death metal band from Serbia. And this came out on Abyss Records. And this is very straightforward black and death metal. Not too well produced, in my opinion. The drums are really clicky on this, and the production sounds really compressed except for the vocals. Songwriting-wise, it's pretty good. I think the growls are really good. Actually, the low growls really remind me a lot of Nurgle from Behemoth, and the higher register stuff as, a good black and shriek. It's when they do clean vocals on here that it doesn't really work. They don't harmonize particularly well, and they kind of come off a little flat and even sometimes maybe a bit off key. Not a terrible release. I like the one that I got courtesy of the Metalhead box a while ago. I think that one's definitely an improvement upon what they're doing. Gotta say, I did like the cover of Night's Blood on here, though. I love Dissection, killer band, and they did a really good job on that song. You might have gotten your Metalhead box if you subscribe, but if not, check it out. Barishi, Blood from the Lion's Mouth. This is another one I got in the Metalhead box. This came out on Season of Mist in 2016, and looking up, it said they were a progressive metal band from Vermont, I believe. And honestly, what you really get here is mostly kind of melodic sludge metal. Musically, I think they're really good. I think they have a lot of stuff in common with early Mastodon, definitely some Baroness, maybe even like Black Tusk. Very similar to the stuff that came out of the whole Savannah, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia scene with all those bands. But I didn't like the vocals on here. They're mostly just shrieked throughout, and a lot of the melody on here I think really calls for some melodic vocals here and there. Still, musically, I really got into a lot of this stuff. I thought the title track was particularly good on here. This also came in the Metalhead box, so you might have got it in there. I don't know. But check it out. It's a pretty interesting listen. Kadavar, self-titled. Now, this is not the German doom metal, doom rock band. This is a death metal band from Milan, Italy, and this is their only full-length release. This came out on Punishment 18 Records in 2009, and this is just straight-up chuggy death metal. It sounds very Floridian, too, which is very interesting. It definitely reminds me a lot of Deicide, Malevolent Creation, Monstrosity. Very thrashy, very fast. There's some cool groovy sections on here, too. It gets a little bit slower, but most of this is just very blast beat forward, tons of chugs. Really solid lead work, too, and alternating high and low vocals. The only knock I can make against it is it closes with, a very pretty instrumental with pianos, acoustic guitars, and a nice lead on top, but it feels very generic and didn't really feel very necessary. I don't think it was the best way to close the album, but if you can find this, this is a killer release. I really dug, 99% of this. It's fucking solid. Check it out, especially if you love death metal. KMFDM Paradise. I have been listening to KMFDM since I was a teenager, and I pretty much own all their releases, so wasn't going to miss this one. I liked the lead-off song, Paradise. I thought it was just pretty much a solid KMFDM song. No Regret, I thought, was a much better song on here, definitely more thrash metal forward, except with electronic flourishes and drums, obviously. But honestly, I think this album's just too long, and there's too many different ideas crammed in here. It just feels really uneven. This came out this year on Metropolis Records. I think it's just pretty much KMFDM puts out an album roughly every 2 years, whether or not they're feeling inspired or not, because this one doesn't feel very inspired, honestly. Like I said, there's some good tracks on here. If you like KMFDM, there's a good chance you'll like this, but this one I wouldn't say is essential listening. But, check it out, form your own opinion. Krabathor Orthodox. Finally got my hands on some Krabathor. Found this in used bin at one of the really cool record shops they had down there in St. Pete, and this is just solid, straightforward death metal. This came recommended by, I think, a couple of you in some of my videos, and yeah, I really dig this. I'm definitely looking to find more. Very riffy, very blast beat centric. It's just heavier than hell. Really dig this. Solid writing, really great bass work on here, and it's very audible in the mix. I really like that. Yeah, definitely into these guys now. Finally got a chance to sit down and listen to them, and I'm on the hunt for more, for sure. If you've never heard Krabathor, definitely check it out. It's good stuff. Kylesa, live at Maida Vale Studios. This is a limited edition EP that came out in 2017 for Kylesa out on Season of Mist, and it is just a live studio session. 4 songs, 2 from Spiral Shadow and then 2 from Ultraviolet, and they sound excellent in here. I mean, honestly, it sounds a lot better than I've heard on their CDs. I think their CDs sound amazing. They sound great on here. I feel like they push the psychedelic aspects on here a little bit more, and I like how full the sounds just being them jamming in the studio, and it's just spot on. It's excellent. If you've never jammed Kylesa before, they're an awesome sludge metal band from Savannah, Georgia. Definitely check them out. If you can find this one, this is a damn good jam if you're looking for a cool studio jam. But if not, grab some of their albums. They're killer. Definitely check it out. Leng Tch'e, Death by a Thousand Cuts. This is the first album from Leng Tch'e. They are a grindcore band from Belgium, and For a time, they featured the frontman from Aborted, Svenko, on drums and backup vocals. And this is just straightforward grindcore. There's a little bit of like some Swedish D-beat kind of punk stuff in here, a little bit of Swedish death metal bits, but mostly it's straightforward grindcore, and it's actually pretty hilarious. These guys are definitely very tongue-in-cheek on here. There's a PSA after one song about the use of the word fuck, and it's pretty hilarious. And it definitely shows you how many different ways you can use it. I already know I've been an expert at saying fuck for years. This band definitely has a sound that's kind of a blend between like exhumed and rotten sound. They alternate between Svenko's low gurgle vocals and their actual frontman's higher screams. Pretty fun listen, little uneven, I'd say. Like some of the songs just go off the rails a little bit too much. But for the most part, solid grindcore. And yeah, if you like grindcore, definitely check these guys out. They're a lot of fun. Martriden, self-titled EP. I've been looking for this for a while. I have the second track on here, The Art of Death Infernal, on a Terrorizer sampler from years ago, and I wanted to find this album for years, but none of my local CD stores had it, and I really couldn't find it online. This came out on Candlelight USA in 2007, and it's only 4 tracks, but all the tracks are over the 5-minute mark, and the first and last songs are both over 7 minutes, so you definitely get your money's worth in terms of how long the album is. Really good stuff. It's blackened death metal, but with touches of melodic death metal in there too. Killer songs. They're like excellent songwriting, great lead work, just heavier than hell, but not bereft of melody. Very modern death metal sound, not very much old school when it comes down to the death metal aspect of their sound, but really, really good stuff. Definitely check it out. It's a lot of fun. And check out their full lengths too. I still need to get their newest one, but I imagine it's pretty good if it's anything like the last one. Definitely check it out. Necro-Sadist, Abstract Satan. Interesting title, which definitely gripped me, and so did the cover, which is just kind of twisted. This is, as described on Encyclopedia Metalum, raw black metal from Cyprus. And to be honest, it's not very raw. It reminds me a lot of Marduk, especially with the speed of the drums in that first track. But honestly, it's not very raw in the sense that there's a lot of melody in here. There are a lot of hooks across the board. The production is gritty, but not as raw as I've heard from bands that aren't described as raw black metal. It's a pretty decent release. I think the last track runs entirely too long, and there's a whole midsection of noise in there that just kind of really put me off. But most of these songs are really well written, and like I said, I was really surprised the melody on here. There's a lot of really good guitar work on here, and some really flashy leads. So yeah, I was definitely surprised with this. I was expecting something way more gritty, and I got something a little bit more tuneful. But yeah, check it out. It's pretty good stuff. Nemesis, The Day of Retribution. This is Leif Edling's band before Candlemass, or the one that he actually fronted. He did vocals, bass, and probably the majority of the songwriting on here. Now this is the reissue through Enigma and Metal Blade Records. This originally came out in 1984. And it's pretty straightforward doom metal with some like classic heavy metal leanings. But unfortunately, Leif's vocals on here are terrible. I really just cannot get into them. I'm so glad he continued with Candlemass and he found really good singers in that band, because that was really the one thing that just kind of took me out of it. The vocals were pretty rough on this. Musically, it's pretty cool, and you also get a couple of early Candlemass demos on here, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, I'd say kind of just a collector's item. I just picked it up because I knew Leif was in Candlemass, and I was curious what he was doing before, and this was a nice, decent price, and I didn't have it. And, well, it was okay. Check it out, though. It's an interesting little footnote in the history of a really kick-ass doom metal band. So yeah, definitely worth checking out at least. Neurosis, The Word as Law. I was so happy to find this on CD because this is the only full length I was missing from Neurosis in my discography. And I have to say, it's not my favorite by like a long shot. This was definitely a transitional period for the band. Pain of Mind being a straightforward punk hardcore album. This, you could see them changing their sound, moving into more, I guess, post-metal, even though post-metal really wasn't a thing back then, because this came out in 1990 or 91. But they were definitely trying to do something different, trying to expand their sound, and trying to figure out where they were going to fit in with the sound. And at this point, it was just kind of all over the place. Still, I like it because this is where they shifted and became the absolutely awesome band they are now. So yeah, an interesting little spot in history for this band. I'm so glad I found this because I don't think there are any other reprints on CD. I know they've reprinted it on vinyl at least, but finding this was a definite cool pickup. Definitely check it out if you haven't heard this album. It's an interesting one. It doesn't sound anything like Neurosis now at all, but definitely worth checking out at least. Nominon, Terra, Necrosis. I picked up a Nominon album not too long ago. I had never heard of the band, and I ended up loving that release. It's just straightforward Swedish death metal, which is right up my alley. It has kind of that meat and potatoes, just very chuggy and riffy, and you know, all the things I like about death metal. This is one that came out in 2007 on Conqueror Records, and pretty much more of the same. I think this one might be a little bit heavier in terms of production, and there's some moments in here that definitely include some blackened parts, but not too dissimilar from the one I have. And yeah, I really dig it. I love finding cool old school death metal bands like this, and these guys are definitely pretty underground. So yeah, good stuff. If you've never heard Nominon, definitely check them out. They're a lot of fun. And finally, the one that I was super happy to find, Nuclear Assault Survive. There are no other reprints on CD as far as I know. This came out on IRS Metal / Combat Records in 1988. And this is pretty much an underground thrash classic as far as I'm concerned. Just kick-ass, very punkish thrash, bordering on crossover. This was probably one of the big ones I was missing in terms of their discography. I still gotta get some of their later stuff, even though I heard it wasn't as good. I'm still willing to check it out. But this one, as soon as I saw on the rack, for $25, still, I had to get it because I don't know when I was going to actually see this, you know, in a record store again versus shopping online and not knowing what the condition would be. And this was in solid condition. If you never heard Nuclear Assault, great underground thrash band from the 80s, definitely check them out. They had some cool stuff in the 90s too. This was probably my biggest takeaway from the trip. I fucking love this. Alright, that does it for another collection update. I'm going to get back to listening to even more stuff that I got in Florida. Still not done with this one. I spent a lot of money there. Gonna have some more album reviews coming for you guys soon. Gonna get worked on our next discography ranking. So there's gonna be more stuff coming for sure because we love what we've done in the year. We love the fact that you guys all subbed us and followed us, and we're super thankful to every last one of you guys. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do shit like this all the time. Catch you guys later.